Hey now, welcome to Fitz's Electric Bar. Can't keep a straight face with an old friend. So I've got Mark Williams on with me today. Mark's an old friend of mine. I don't know if you know this, but you're probably one of my not in age, but in number of years, you're one of my oldest friends that I have. I've known you technically since high school, the very end of
Yeah.
my high school. You're a few years younger than me. But I mean, yeah, like university days, and I don't have really connections or relationships with anybody previous to university other than you and Chris and obviously family.
Yeah, no, I never thought of that, but that's right. I mean, pre Queens.
Yeah, exactly. So, when I started to get to know you, you were the lead singer in the famous band Lesbian Games that would only do shows in the basements of girls' dormitories.
And we had a catchy tagline, which was "Come see the foreplay." What a boom. When actually there were five of us. But
Right.
five play didn't quite work as a tagline.
No, no, not quite as good. And also, is it true for our viewers and listeners that you had a tragically hip member as a roommate?
This is true. I've known Gord Sinclair. I met him in the first year at Queens, and he was my roommate in the second year and in fourth year. And basically, I hung out with him throughout, all of Queens, along with Robbie Baker, who was always showing up at the play at our place, and then towards the end of in fourth year, Gord Downing, I got to know him too, and then subsequently the whole band.
Yeah, yeah. I remember seeing, I think at the Hotel Isabella with you, seeing the Tragically Hip one time. And of course, they were all from our university, but it was still kind of fun to see a bunch of guys that you kind of knew and were in the community, as it were, actually take off and become like understandably respected and a great live act as well as recording act, right?
Yeah, I mean it was great. I mean, especially when they would come through New York, I'd see them every 6 months or a year, and just to watch their progression. Different venues, bigger venues, just more polished, better material. That was just such a treat. And also because it was sort of so intermittent that you really noticed the changes because I wasn't sort of seeing them in real time ongoing.
Yeah. And you and I have seen many, many great shows together. I'm thinking of pre-London Calling the Clash show at the O'Keefe Center,
Yeah.
Husker Du in New York, L7, many others. I don't know if any others stick out for you. It's all a blur almost.
I mean, more recently, Luna. Um, yeah, no, I've seen a ton of shows.
Yeah, and just to close out this sort of like opening bit, I've always considered you, there's sort of a couple people in my life who, in particular, have turned me on to a lot of music and things that I didn't know and subsequently became big fans of. And you and another gentleman, Dean, have always been that person in my life. In addition to our friendship, we would close our conversation. So, what are you listening to these days? And I remember you told me we laugh about your fan zero, like ground zero for Luna because a whole bunch of us became lifelong fans and kind of like rabid fans, and that all kind of came from your bringing them up to me and to Chris, I think.
Yeah, yeah, unknowing that that happened, but yeah, I mean, it was, and vice versa. I mean, your depth of knowledge in music, which constantly turning me on to new stuff I'd never heard of before.
Uh,
Joy
we were
Division being one.
we were the original VC.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's jump into the 10 questions. Um, What record, and when I say record, it obviously doesn't have to be vinyl. It could be CD, it could be on the streaming platforms, however you listen to music. But what record are you really listening to or enjoying lately? One of your front of the pile records?
Um, okay, so recently I've been doing a lot of cycling, which I'd never done before, and I'm just looking for stuff. So, an older album is Jane's Addiction, Ritual Los Habitual, which I absolutely love. I got it when it first came out. I mean, like a closeted Perry Farrell fan. I just love their vibe. I love the sound. It's sort of a little bit of a Led Zeppelin thing, but it's also just the Bad Boy Pistols thing as well. So that one is just something that really keeps me energized. And I mean, whenever I listen to that, I just feel like I just go crazy. I love it.
You get a few more RPMs out of that.
Oh, totally. But it comes and goes. It's not, but this just happens to be, this is the one I'm on right now. I mean, there's, many, many, many albums, but I typically find an album and I just play it over and over again and then drop it off and then it disappears for like years and then I find something else.
And were you into Jane's Addiction in the day?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I can't remember. I think it was on, is it CMJ, the college music? I remember reading something about Jane's Addiction. I was like, I've got that and Soundgarden. There were two bands that I was like, who are these people? I really want to see them. So I saw Jane's early on in New York, maybe at Irving Plaza, before Nothing Shocking came out. And I knew nothing about them, and that I couldn't get an album. So I just went on faith, and yeah, the show was phenomenal. And then I got Nothing Shocking, and I love that. I mean, that's a really great album too. And then onward from that to Ritual Ojos Habitual. And then the others I'm not as big into, and I did a little bit of, I think he went on to do what is it, Porno for Pyros and some other Perry Farrell. Anyway, I petered off, but those are the Nothing Shocking and Ritual are two albums I absolutely love.
Um, Tell me a favorite concert experience that you've had in your life.
Favorite concert experience was Gary Glitter at Larry's Hideaway. So you have to know, first of all, you have to know both. You have to know Gary Glitter, Rock and Roll Part 1 and 2, Do You Want to Touch Me There? I mean, all those call and response songs. A big ham, and now, I don't know if I can say his name anymore because he's a convicted pedophile. But back in the day, I mean, I was a huge fan. It was sort of partly a joke, but coming out of the glam and that whole thing, he was one of the sort of the preeminent artists. So he was doing a sort of a comeback tour with the double drums, two drummers, the whole thing, and they'd set up. He was booked at Masonic Temple, which was sort of a medium-sized venue. Okay, seemed appropriate. Scaled down from the big arenas. Great, fine. But then because of lack of ticket sales, he moved from Masonic Temple to Larry's Hideaway, which is a capacity of about, I don't know, maybe 600 people.
Oh,
Probably,
I think it's small. It was smaller than that.
yeah, probably. You're right. You're right. Really tiny, with a stage that was essentially, maybe it was a riser. So the stage itself was probably 3 feet off the ground and a super low ceiling. And I just remember the opening of that show. So you're right in front of, like he's 10 feet away from you, but also, he's got that opening, starts off with Rock and Roll Part 1, and it's got the double drums, and then there's that first driving guitar, and so what happens is there's this spotlight shoots on, and you've got Gary Glitter standing, and he turns to hit and the spotlight hits him. And then it's all set up for Gary to go down this flight of stairs. But obviously the ceiling is so low that there's 3 stairs made out of 2x4s that he's standing on the top and proceeds to sort of slowly step down stair to stair until he finally hits this riser platform. I mean, it was both incredible and hilarious at the same time. But I would say the show was amazing. The musicians were flawless. He didn't give a damn that it was such a small venue. He totally committed. And it could have been, a stadium show. It could have been Masonic Temple. But I mean, here it was, Larry's Hideaway. And it was so delightful just to be that close to this legend. And he was still, that's what makes a star a star. He committed no matter what. It was a fantastic show.
That's awesome. And knowing you, I can see that, like the commitment, but also the humor behind the fact that he was not in a setting where this should be delivered that way.
Exactly. And yeah, it was just, and everybody there was it was just such a fun time. And thank God he and the musicians were really good. Otherwise it would have been kind of pathetic.
Mm, awesome. A favorite Bowie record?
Oh God, see, I'm not a Bowie fan at all.
No,
So
you don't need to come up with anything. You can just simply say, I don't like David Bowie.
yeah, I mean Bowie, I'd say maybe Heroes, but then I only like the Heroes track, and then I guess Ziggy Stardust, but I only like a couple tracks there. The sort of the sexual ambiguity is something that just even at an early age made me quite uncomfortable. And as a 63-year-old heterosexual man, I still have issues with it. I'm sorry.
So, I didn't expect to learn a lot from this interview because we know each other quite well, but I actually didn't realize that Bowie was not particularly of interest to you.
Not really. I mean, I like Iggy, I like Lou Reed, that part of it. But Bowie, I don't know. It just it never really did it for me. Bauhaus, I like a good, but whatever.
All Bowie adjacency stuff is good, but not
Yeah,
Bowie.
Bowie, like my wife loves Bowie, and it's just like, okay, just go play it in the other room.
Keep it down.
Yes, please.
One of the saddest songs ever.
Oh boy. I'm gonna go way back to when I was like, I think in grade six. I was at a friend's house and he played Cats in the Cradle. And I remember hearing it for the first time and having to go and hide because I was crying. I was so moved by this song. And now it's sort of become a bit of a cliche and a little bit camp, but I mean, that was a pretty moving song. I mean, I'm thinking of other songs that really, oh boy, there's probably a bunch by the band. Um, uh, I don't know. I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, there's a lot. Maybe I'll come. I don't know. Sorry. I mean, it
No,
sounds ridiculous, but Cats in the Cradle was the one for me.
you mentioned the band, and for me, it makes no difference. I almost always get very emotional when I hear that song, the Rick Danko.
Yeah, Tears of Rage. That's what that I really. There's a line in there about dear daughter, and I just think of my own daughter, and when I hear that song, and I hear this dad sort of pained and trying to figure something out, and that actually is a very very moving song for me.
One of the most joyful songs ever.
Ooh, you know what? There's a song by the Kinks called, I believe it's not, is it Big Sky or is it oh God, the lyric is about, it's basically a song about the sky, and how everybody's wandering around completely miserable in their life, but the big sky doesn't care. The big sky doesn't have time to be worried. I love that song, and it's so much about just don't get too wrapped up in your own problems. The world's a huge place. Your problems are so tiny relative to what's going on. And you know what? The big guy's got all the problems and he's still pretty happy. So just enjoy life.
Awesome.
I think
Thank
it's
you.
called Big Sky.
It's funny. I keep thinking of something like Full Moon off of Sleepwalker, but I don't think it's that song. I'm drawing a blank on that.
Big Sky looks up in the world and sees all the problems, but Big Sky, it's a great, it's very fun. It's a really great song.
Awesome. So you get up in the morning, and I know you like that time when Laura's still not awake, and you come down with a cup of coffee, and you realize that everyone's out of the house, and you can put on whatever you want first thing in the morning on a Saturday morning. What's your first record of the day?
Oh boy, I mean, again, it just sort of like cycle through so many. I want to say something from the Clash, probably. Magnificent Seven's a good one to get the day going. It's perfect because that's what the song's about, just getting up, revving for the week. I love that song. I love Sandinista. I think, people tend to poo on that album and say it should be a one album or it's not great. I think it's fantastic. It's got so many cuts on it. I love the fact that they were so indulgent and were willing to do it all. But Magnificent Seven is a really fun song to start the day with.
Perfect. One of the most underrated bands or artists ever.
Well, I have two that I really like I mean, one was the Dream Syndicate, which their one album, I just love so, so much. They then went on, obviously, their second album, I think, was called Medicine Show. The first one was Days of Wine and Roses. Medicine Show just didn't live up. And I remember seeing them warming up. They opened up for REM, and I was so excited to see them. And all they played was songs off of Medicine Show, and I was so disappointed. So that's one. I can't remember. You know the guy, the lead, the sort of the centerpiece of Dream Syndicate, right?
Yeah, I've seen him a few times on his own, and he's also in the Baseball Project. And for some reason, and I think he's sometimes in Minus Five with Scott McCaughey, but I'm just suddenly drawing a blank on
Yeah, I
his
can't.
name. But yeah,
In any event, I love that album, and then it was about they did one reunion tour about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. It's phenomenal. It was a great show. The only difference was the tempo was a little faster, and I realized, oh, these are all pop songs. These are really great pop songs, but put through a filter of like 1980, 82, 83. It was, that sort of second gen new wave punk vibe that I just loved, and it had a little bit of Dream Syndicate, a little bit of Velvet Underground in it. So that was one. I think the other one, obviously, that is Grantley Buffalo. That was a big fan of their albums early on. I mean, Grant Lee still tours. I've seen him a couple times. They're very small, quiet little shows. But the first couple of Grant Lee Buffalo albums, again, they're just monster songs that have a great sound, and then these quieter ballads, which I love. I tend to play. I'll play those albums a lot every so often.
yeah, you turned me on to Grantley Buffalo. I remember that was from you.
Yeah, Fuzzy, and what's the second one? Shining Hour, maybe?
There's Fuzzy and there's Copper. What is
Oh,
that?
Copperopolis, I think, is their third
The
album.
third album.
Bad. I mean, there's one and two are the best, I think.
The
And then
Joe Moon, yeah.
yeah, Mighty Joe Moon, that's it.
Mighty
And
Joe Moon.
then they, I don't know, they
Yeah.
try.
Van Morrison or Jackson Brown?
Jackson Brown, not on my radar at all. I think as a kid, I was so prejudiced by that one song, Now the Seats Are All Empty, Let the Roadies, which I hated so much. And I think it came out around the time that I started to get into punk and everything. So it was like even made it more target of my derision and hate. And I know Jackson Brown. I mean, Jackson Brown, I believe, hung out with Velvet Underground and was part of the Warhol scene.
He wrote the song These Days that Nico sang.
So that I only more recently learned about all of that. So now at least I accept him. But
He is relieved to hear that, by the way.
right, exactly. And then Van, I've played, a bunch of Tupelo Honey. There's a couple, the early album with, what is it? TB Sheets, I like that. There's, I guess, what's the album? Moondance, which is what everybody plays that. I mean, I like Van, but I just don't want to get too excited about him because I always look to the Last Waltz and see him dancing around in that like sparkly little gym outfit that he has on. So I can only go so far with like thinking he's a cool guy because you see him in that movie and he's like, okay, Van, get off stage quickly.
You got to give that pantsuit to charity.
Exactly. I think it's a one-piece spandex, like silver glitter thing, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
thought it was like a beige, almost like fleece material.
It may be, but that's me sort of turning it in and justifying a reason why I shouldn't like him as much as others.
I think uniformly his fashion choice for that performance has been derided by all.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and I guess I don't know all this sort of more recent stuff. I haven't been, I like Van in little doses.
right. Joni Mitchell or Aretha Franklin?
Joni, I mean, Canadian all the way. It's funny, you talked about songs that really moved me. I think it's A Case of You. Oh my God, this summer I heard that, and with all the crazy shit going on in the world, and just hearing that song, and just at a simpler time, and just the love of country, I was driven to tears by that. It was just so powerful. I love Blue. I mean, there's a ton of albums I really like. And they're sort of like family albums for me, like when my kids were really young, whenever we were on road trips or anything, play a ton of Joni, and the kids know it. They love Joni, so it's sort of a very sentimental experience for me when we play it. And it's something I feel like it's passing a legacy on. Plus, the Canadian piece is really meaningful for me as well. Yeah, definitely. I mean, Aretha, I love, but I don't have any personal connection to. I think she can pound out the tunes. I love her best of, her greatest hits, but I don't go much deeper than that. With Joni, it's like album to album. Blue, I think, is probably one of my favorite albums.
Awesome. Three absolute must-have desert island discs.
Okay. God, okay. Wow. I don't know. This is a hard one. I feel like I should have prepared for this.
I didn't give you the opportunity, did I?
Yeah, no, you did not. I mean, I guess I'd go with London Calling. That's sort of a get up and go. Ugh, I feel like I should say the Beatles, but I don't know. There's nothing like I don't play the Beatles that often. Maybe Remain in Light by Talking Heads. It's got enough. It's got enough variety on it. Um, Now I feel like I should. And then Blue. I'll go with that.
Hmm,
Yeah.
good choices. Thank you. Okay, so here's some that are sort of partially crafted for with you in mind. So I'm going to ask you to get dropped into a music scene from the past, and I'll give you some examples that you can choose from, but you can pick your own era that really you would have loved to have been a participant in. Okay, so the Laurel Canyon scene, Joni Mitchell, Neil Young, CSN, etc. The Manchester post-punk of Joy Division, and I think Buzzcocks were part of that, and that Factory Records.
Yeah.
The later Manchester scene, which was referred to as Madchester, so the Stone Roses and
Yeah.
Spiral Carpets and all that kind of stuff. Hamburg 60 to 62, the Beatles in Germany. Um, Punk New York, so CBGB's, Television Talking Heads, Blondie, etc. And the UK punk scene, so the birth of punk in the UK, Sex Pistols, Clash, all that kind of stuff. The Damned. What era would you most like to have been fully immersed in?
Boy, that's a great question. I think probably UK punk scene. For me, that was sort of my coming of age. I remember seeing, I think it was in grade 11, I had tickets. I saw Queen one week when Jazz came out, and then the next week I saw Elvis Costello's This Year's Model, I think. And that was transformative. It was like get rid of the Queen records and then deep dive into, Elvis was new wave, more or less, but the punk scene, Sex Pistols, Clash, Damned, Susie, I loved that music, and it just felt so fresh and so different than anything else I'd heard. And I was also, I up until grade 11 and grade 9 and 10, I lived in the suburbs. And so, the suburbs, it was all about Led Zeppelin, Queen, Jeff Beck, Cream, Hendrix, and I was well versed in all that. And then I suddenly, this new stuff was just like, holy shit, like to hear Johnny Rotten's voice on that album just cut through, spitting out horrible diction, and it was just like, it was so phenomenal. The guitar on that, Steve Jones just cutting through, and all the Clash, loved the Clash. Buzzcocks, I still have, I'm convinced I lost hearing at a Buzzcocks Gang of Four concert in Toronto. I had like a hearing hangover, a ring in my ears for about 3 or 4 days afterwards, but phenomenal. So all that stuff, love the scene, love the clothing, love the attitude. That's where I would want to be.
Perfect. So good segue. Gang of Four, Joy Division, or The Cure? Who would you choose?
I would go with Joy Division. I mean, again, they were a band that when you introduced me to them, I think the first thing I heard was Atmosphere. And, loved that. And then I went to London and I got the import of Unknown Pleasures and love that. And then close on the heels of that, Closer came out. And then I got I think it was a factory double album, still this gray one with some of the earlier stuff from Warsaw and some live stuff.
Still.
Still, not a big New Order fan. I like the first New Order album, which is not really considered part of the New Order oeuvre. It's almost like more Joy Division maybe, but definitely Joy Division. Cure I like. I think they have a much deeper catalog, obviously, but I tend to like the earlier stuff, Faith, Pornography, that kind of that. I mean, maybe a little bit more recent of that. And then what was the third one?
Third one was Gang of Four.
Gang of Four is great, but I mean, it's like they're so limited, right? I love their sound, but Joy Division.
What singer-songwriter do you feel has had one of the most interesting career evolutions or career arcs?
Lou Reed. I mean, I go down like just watching his trajectory, his changes, his the chameleonness of him. Starting off with Velvet Underground and sort of constantly on the move, on the make, trying to figure out how he could become a rock and roll star and squeezing out the rest of the band and getting this other band in front of him and trying to become a rock star with rock and roll or in Sweet Jane, and then going solo, and that's sort of like, I guess it'd be a glam thing with what I guess the band was the Lincolns with Hunter and a few other guys. That part, and then just the different phases of career all the way through like to New Sensations, which is sort of his sort of like becoming an adult kind of thing. New York's another phenomenal album. What is it called? Is it Magic and Loss? I mean, I'm missing other ones. Coney Island Baby, Sally Can't Dance. Like just an incredible range of material. Most of it pretty good. I mean, there's a few things you play a couple songs and they're just so cringy with just terrible rhymes, and it's like, ooh, Lou, how could you do that? But I mean, the guy, he's iconic. I mean, just been there, done that, seen it all.
So I'd be remiss to not have a follow-up question and ask your opinion of Metal Machine music.
That I have. I get it. I actually often conflate that album with The Bells, which is another one that's pretty much I think there's one song on it I want to boogie with. Oh no, but Hey Pretty Babe, I don't know what it is, but there's a couple songs on it. But Metal Machine music I listen to. It's just not a good use of one's time.
My brother Andrew was saying to me recently that he realized, I don't know how, but that he had gone to see Lou Reed at the El Macombo, and I was at that show as well, and it was the Bells tour. And we both have zero memory of actually seeing him. I think I've still got the ticket, but it was so unmemorable.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a guy, like Stone Roses and a couple other bands getting screwed by a record label and just trying to like, I got to get out of this contract. Here you go. Which I think the Bells was probably part of that as well, right? Just crank out as many albums as I can as fast as possible.
Now I'm done.
Yeah.
A great rock biography or music documentary. So do you have any thoughts of a rock biography or autobiography that you think is really great and a rock documentary that you really loved?
There's a rock sort of doc that I read. I keep getting this call. I think it was The Clash, The Making of London Calling, which is a great, it's sort of the first half of the book is all about them coming together as a band and how they worked all the way up to London Calling. And then the second half of the book is a song by song breakdown of how every single song was recorded, when, where, who, goes into detail, so that's one I really love. That's a book. And then doc, I really liked the Velvet Underground documentary by Todd Haynes. Todd's someone I know, and he would share rough cuts, and just seeing the longer expanses of that with tons and tons of archival footage that I'd never seen before. That was fun to see that, and I think he did a really decent job of culling it down to something that's pretty cogent and really does a good job of sort of laying out the dynamics of the band, and it's a good piece of pop culture history.
Right. Last question, and this may cut in the middle of it, which will be an existential issue we'll have to deal with. But what is the meaning of life?
The meaning of life, well, I think it's like that's the Kink song. It's like, try not to get too worked up about any of your problems because they pale by comparison by other people's problems. Enjoy life, try to be kind to other people. Caring, connect. I mean, in light of all the craziness that's going on in the world, I feel like my focus has gotten much smaller, trying to work on the relationships that are close to me, that are meaningful, and let all the other stuff just sort of, water off a duck's back and just try to keep it simple.
Awesome. Thanks for participating, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Fitz. This was fun. I actually surprised that I answered every question.
You passed with flying colors, my friend. Next question will
Woohoo!
be, when are you going to start your VC channel?
That would be never.
Well, I'll get you on again as a guest then. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Cheers.